I'm your host, Latasia Moore, and today we have a phenomenal guest here who's actually going to give us some information about some health things that we may need to know for our future. So I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Peace and blessings and good morning. It is good to be and good to see you again as well.
It is.
Yeah, my name is Elder McKinday Ballahan. We run Rapha Institute of Health. It's an advocacy, health, research, education institution founded since 1980.
Wow. Yeah, that's right around the time I was born. We're not going to say exactly what year, but today we're going to be talking about some very interesting things. First of all, I want to talk about Alzheimer's. Is it said Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's? I know people
Alzheimer's.
Say Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
People call it Alzheimer's.
They call it a lot of things.
But I wanted to talk about Alzheimer's and to see exactly what it is. I know that Rosa Parks actually passed from Alzheimer's, and then Ronald Reagan had it. So what is it?
It's a brain disease that called the degeneration of the brain, and it has many negative effects on it. Ultimately, it can be what you said. It can cause death. There is a lot of lack of knowledge about it because a lot of people are not researching, and the only time you can really adequately look and tell specifically the difference between other brain diseases, dementia, and Alzheimer's is when you actually do an autopsy.
Oh, wow.
And so that's when you can really look at the brain, and then you can see, is it Alzheimer's, or is it dementia, is it sterility, is there other kinds of brain impairments that take place? Because there's a lot of problems associated with the brains.
Nice. Well, I have a question posed from that. What difference does it make from being dead or alive, the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Does it show up differently when you're passed or when you're dead than it does when you're alive?
To be able to properly diagnose it, that's the only time when they can actually be certain that it is Alzheimer's.
That it was Alzheimer's.
That is all was Alzheimer's. Yeah. So that's when they have many theories about exactly how to diagnose accurately what it actually is. So sometimes people be caught between diagnoses and they're not quite sure of exactly what's going on. And some people look at it as a progressive disease that automatically come with age, and that's not correct. More and more people who are coming down with it, as well as younger and younger people are coming down with it. And there's many reasons for that.
Wow. Okay, so why are there more people getting Alzheimer's and this nature? Like, I don't believe that in the past there was as many as before. Even when I did some research, there was scattered incidents of it, but now it seems to be an epidemic, almost a pandemic.
It is. Well, if we look at statin drugs for one thing, there was one professor who had a PhD and he started taking statin drugs, and within 1 year, everything he learned from high school up was gone.
Wow.
And so there have been scientific research studies show you that statin drugs and other medications are a serious problem as it pertains to this. And there's mad cow disease, which a lot of people don't understand clearly.
Wow.
But a lot of the animals, cows specifically, lose muscle mobility. Matter of fact, if you ever seen one of the slaughterhouses, you'll see them picking up cows with a forklift and putting them on the survey belt. I mean that this cow done lost all of mobility. So mad cow disease sometimes takes 20 or 30 years before it actually shows up. So if people are eating affected cows, that disease are beginning in their brain also from that particular reason as well.
Oh, wow. So you said something about statin drugs. If you don't mind me just taking back on that.
No.
What is that when you say
well,
statin
these are
drugs?
medications which doctors prescribe for a number of reasons. And then one of the side effects is, I think there have been controversy about that particular drug, and I think I'm not quite sure the status of the drug. I think at one time they were thinking about taking it off the market, but what happens, they allow the pharmaceutical companies to do their own research.
Okay.
And the pharmaceutical companies have an opportunity to make billions of dollars. So if human nature tell me, if I'm going to police myself, if I'm going to profit, then the study going to show that there's no detrimental effects to this medication.
Right.
But if you look at the news and you see people talking about if you're taking this medication or if you're taking that medication, then you can come sue. This disease might be prevalent in you. So it's a serious problem, but most people in America believe that we are protected by the FDA, and they don't realize that industry actually control the FDA. So the people who, the regulatory industries in government, supposed to oversee industry. The industry done infiltrated, what's called revolving door, between the industry and the regulatory agency. And so actually there's nobody, the old folks used to say that chicken hawk is over the chicken coop or something.
Chicken hawk is over the chicken coop. Well, well, okay then. Now, is Alzheimer's a fatal disease? I mean, I know we're talking about, when you talk about mad cow disease and all these other statin drugs, it makes me wonder, is it fatal?
Yes, it can be fatal. You can lose all mobility. You can lose the ability to remember your relatives. You have a tendency to easily get lost. For the day-to-day functions, you lose that. Sometimes it can even get to the point that you lose the ability to know how to go to the bathroom.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awful.
That is.
That is truly awful.
It's truly awful.
And so you have people who are now immobile, they don't know how to get back and forth, and then they also are losing their memory on other things.
Matter of fact, it's a serious problem by people who have dementia, have a tendency to wander away and to get lost. And so it's a serious problem because even you have them in the nursing homes, they have to make sure the doors are locked.
Oh.
Because people wander away and they don't know. Yes, they don't know where they came from. And the sad part is that sometimes they don't even know their own relatives.
Oh.
So it's a serious problem. There needs to be more research done in that area. But people are clearly aware that there's a lot of things that's actually contributing to it, and it's a dietary component to it too. For instance, some things that's very, very beneficial is walnuts. People don't recognize that walnuts have a tremendous impact upon the health of the brain. And matter of fact, if you look at the walnuts and you look at the two hemispheres of the nut, it looks like the two hemispheres of the brain.
Well, I'm about to go buy some.
I'm talking about raw now. I'm talking about raw. I'm not talking about cooked.
Okay, so just the kind that you get.
Has to be raw nuts.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's fine. I'm gonna make my grocery list now. Tell me what I need to do to not get Alzheimer's. So I understand that it's a fatal disease. That it is kind of you're to the death. There's no reverse of it, meaning that there's nothing.
There's very rare cases when it's a reverse of it. Knowing some of the signs and symptoms where you can slow it down, there is no medical reversal of it through drugs. There have been some successes losing natural medicines, losing vitamins and minerals in foods, and taking some of the detox. The problem a lot of times with the brain, the neurons in the brain carry messages. So if there are certain heavy metals in the body, it'll also interfere with the messages that the brain sends to the rest of the body. And so if you have aluminum in your central nervous system, the chemical composition of the electronic impulse that the brain sends to other parts of the body, it interferes with the message. And so heavy metals also have been a contributing factor to this particular problem.
Okay. I mean, I love the science part of it all. I was about to be like, excuse me. So I've been out of school in the science area for a minute. So that is actually very interesting that there's a science component to it, and then at the same time that your body can just decompose by the way you're eating.
Yeah, we eat, I think 51% 51% of our diet in America is processed refined foods. And if you understand the concept of process, that means for white bread, for instance, they take the fiber out of the bread, which is called roughage, that people need for their body. They take the wheat germ out of the bread, sell that on the shelf, and then they put some fortification back in the white bread and tell you it's bread. It's not bread.
Yes, it looks like bread, so we just buy it because we think it's bread.
It's cheap.
Right. It is. It's 99 cents.
It's cheap. And we have a tendency to evaluate the cost of food at the cash register.
Right.
And that's the wrong place to evaluate it. You need to evaluate it on how it performs in your body. For instance, if you have a car, you want to make sure you get adequate oil or gas.
Yeah.
If you get poor oil or gas, your performance is going to be good. Now, the body is fearfully and wonderfully made by God, so He have built in certain mechanisms to try to avoid some of the problems we have from the environment. The chemical environment, and that's another factor with all kind of chemicals in the environment. Some people go into their bathrooms and call themselves clean their bathrooms. They mix these chemicals up in their bathrooms and almost fall out.
Yeah. It's like a mad science lab.
That's right.
Trying to get it clean.
They become a chemist all of a sudden and almost die in the bathroom.
I've done that. Almost passed out with ammonia.
That's right. So you have to be very, very careful with the environment, the chemical environments. People need to gravitate to more natural products to do things, and there's simple remedies, natural cleaners that clean everything. But people are so caught up in the commercial aspects of promotion that's on television that we are so orientated and we are so driven, and sometimes we don't understand that
it can actually hurt you.
It can actually hurt us.
So with Alzheimer's, what I'm getting from you is that we just need to be mindful of what we're putting in our bodies, and at the same time be mindful of how your body is performing, to make sure that we kind of catch that in advance. And I do thank you so much for coming to the show and giving us, me at least, a grocery list of what I need to do and how I need to take care to prevent these type of things in the future. So I do thank you so much. I thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, LaTasia Moore, and I thank you for tuning in.
Winston, just one more inning, Grandma.
Ever notice how many things today kids can do without actually moving? A whole lot of things their parents used to do the hard way. So many kids' activities today seem to leave out the activity part, which makes exercise even more important for children. In fact, new research tells us the best time to enhance bone development is during childhood and adolescence. And just getting children to walk an extra 35 minutes a day could spare them the pain of thinning bones later in life. Healthy bones come from healthy habits. Encourage your kids to get up, get out, and get moving.
Hello. Hey, Grandma, how about another grape soda?
A public service message on building strong bones for kids from the Pediatric Orthopedic Society of North America and the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, LaTasia Moore, and I'm here once again with a phenomenal man. He's actually telling us a lot about health and how we can maintain our health and actually move forward for the future. We'll allow him to introduce himself, and we can get a better understanding of who he is and what he does.
All right, so good to be with you again. I am Elder McKinday Bolahan. We are the founder and director of Rapha Institute of Health, Education Research Advocacy Organization.
Awesome. Well, today we're actually talking about a couple of things, but I wanted to dive into dementia. As a young person, I'm actually not as quite sure